Dr. Sarah Chun pressed her palm against the cold metal surface of the alien structure. The massive building stretched into the cloudy sky of Kepler 442b, its dark walls covered in symbols that seemed to shift and move when she wasn't looking directly at them. Her team of archaeologists and linguists had been studying the ruins for 3 months, but they were no closer to understanding the mysterious civilization that had built them. "Any luck with the translation software?" asked Dr. Marcus Webb, her second-in-command. He wiped sweat from his forehead as he approached, carrying a tablet filled with scanned data. Sarah shook her head. "The computer can't even identify the basic structure of the language. It's unlike anything in our databases. The symbols appear to follow patterns, but they don't match any known linguistic rules." The expedition had traveled 18 months through space to reach this planet after long-range sensors detected signs of advanced technology. What they found exceeded their wildest expectations. The ruins covered an area the size of Manhattan, with buildings that defied conventional physics. Some structures floated in mid-air without visible support. Others seemed to bend space around them, creating impossible angles that hurt to look at. "Dr. Chun," called out Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communications tent. "Command wants an update on our progress." Sarah sighed. 3 months of work, and all they had to show for it were detailed scans and thousands of untranslatable symbols. The pressure from Earth was mounting. This expedition had cost billions of dollars and represented humanity's first major archaeological discovery on an alien world. The public expected answers, and so did the politicians who funded the mission. As evening approached, Sarah found herself alone in the main structure. Her team had returned to base camp for dinner, but she couldn't tear herself away from the wall of symbols in the central chamber. Something about them called to her, as if they contained a message she was meant to understand. She ran her fingers along the carved symbols, feeling the smooth grooves worn by unknown hands. The metal was warm to the touch, despite the cool evening air. As she traced one particularly complex symbol, she felt a strange tingling sensation in her fingertips. "What are you?" she whispered to the wall. The symbol seemed to pulse with faint light, so subtle she almost missed it. Sarah blinked, wondering if exhaustion was making her see things. But there it was again, a soft glow emanating from the carved lines. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Sarah had grown up listening to stories of their family's ancient heritage, of languages and customs that predated written history. Her grandmother claimed their bloodline carried memories of the first humans, of knowledge that existed before civilization began. "Nonsense," Sarah's parents had always said. "Grandmother is getting old. These are just stories." But as Sarah stood before the alien wall, she found herself remembering words her grandmother had whispered to her as a child. Strange, flowing syllables that seemed to carry weight beyond their sound. Her grandmother had called it the first tongue, the language spoken by humanity's earliest ancestors. Almost without thinking, Sarah began to speak the words her grandmother had taught her. The syllables felt foreign on her tongue, yet familiar somehow. As she continued, the glow from the symbols grew brighter. "Talashri Neth Valendamor Thuk," she said, the words flowing more easily now. "Setharan Thuvanal Ketharanul." The entire wall erupted in brilliant light. Sarah stumbled backward as symbols raced across the surface like liquid fire. The chamber filled with a humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. And then, impossibly, a voice spoke from the walls themselves. Identity confirmed. Genetic markers recognized. "Welcome home, heir of the ancients." Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. The voice spoke perfect English, but underneath she could hear something else, the same flowing language she had just spoken. "Who are you?" she managed to ask. "I am the keeper of knowledge, guardian of this facility for 1,000 million years. I have waited for your return, though I confess I did not expect it to take quite so long." "My return? I've never been here before. I'm human, from Earth." A pause. Then, something that might have been amusement in the voice. "Yes, child. You are exactly what I expected. The genetic markers confirm your heritage. You carry the bloodline of the ancients, those who built this place before they seeded the galaxy with life." Sarah's mind reeled. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth over millions of years. We have fossil evidence, DNA analysis, and all of it is accurate, The AI interrupted gently. Your species did evolve on Earth. But the seeds of that evolution were planted long ago by those who came before. Your grandmother's stories were not fantasies, child. They were memories preserved across countless generations. The symbols on the walls had settled into a steady glow, and Sarah could see that the chamber was much larger than she had realized. The light revealed corridors stretching deeper into the structure, and glimpses of vast halls beyond. "What is this place?" she asked. "This is a repository of knowledge, one of many scattered throughout the galaxy. When the ancients realized their time was ending, they built these facilities to preserve their wisdom. They also seeded countless worlds with the genetic potential for intelligence, hoping that one day their descendants would return to claim their inheritance." "Why did they disappear?" "They did not disappear, child. They transformed. The ancients reached a level of evolution where physical form became optional. They chose to transcend the limitations of matter and energy. But before they did, they ensured that others would follow in their path." Sarah felt dizzy. Everything she thought she knew about human history was crumbling around her. How many others know about this? Currently, only you. The genetic markers necessary to activate this facility are extremely rare. In your species' brief recorded history, perhaps 1 in 10 billion carries the proper sequence. Your family line has preserved both the genetic code and the linguistic triggers necessary for access. My team will be unable to perceive what you now see. To them, this chamber appears unchanged. Only those with the proper heritage can interface with ancient technology. As if to demonstrate, Sarah heard footsteps in the corridor behind her. Dr. Webb appeared in the doorway, looking concerned. "Sarah, we saw lights from outside. Is everything okay?" Sarah looked around in confusion. To her eyes, the chamber blazed with gentle light from thousands of glowing symbols. But Webb's expression showed no sign that he noticed anything unusual. "I'm fine," she said carefully. "Just thinking." "The walls look different somehow," Webb mused, stepping closer. "These symbols seem more defined than before. Maybe the atmospheric moisture is affecting the metal." Sarah realized that while he couldn't see the light or hear the AI, some changes were visible to him. The symbols had indeed become more pronounced, though he attributed it to natural causes. "Perhaps," she agreed. "I'll be along shortly." Webb nodded and left, still puzzling over the apparently enhanced carvings. "Clever," said the AI once he was gone. "The facility makes minor adjustments to maintain plausible explanations for observable phenomena. Your colleague will find perfectly logical reasons for any changes he notices." "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "What am I supposed to do with this information?" "That choice is yours, descendant. I can offer guidance, but the ancients believed strongly in free will. This repository contains knowledge that could advance your species by millennia. Technologies to heal your world's environmental damage, cure diseases, travel between stars as easily as walking between rooms. But it also contains knowledge that could destroy you if misused." Sarah thought of Earth's current political climate, the tensions between nations, the way humanity seemed to fight over everything. "How can I be sure we're ready for such knowledge?" Wisdom lies in asking that question. Many species have found these repositories over the eons. Some were ready. Others. The AI paused. "Let us say that the galaxy has fewer inhabited worlds than it once did." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "What happens if I choose not to access the knowledge?" "Then, nothing changes. The repository remains dormant until another era arrives, however long that may take. Your teammates will complete their survey, catalog what they can observe, and return to Earth with interesting but ultimately incomprehensible findings. And if I do access it, then humanity takes its next great step forward. But be warned, once begun, the process cannot be undone. Knowledge, once gained, cannot be forgotten." Sarah walked closer to the glowing wall, studying the flowing symbols. In them, she saw hints of mathematical formulas beyond anything Earth's greatest minds had conceived. Star charts that mapped pathways through folded space. Genetic sequences that could remake life itself. "How long do I have to decide?" "As long as you need. I have waited 1 billion years. I can wait longer. But know that your presence here has activated certain protocols. Other repositories throughout the galaxy are now aware that an heir has awakened. If you choose to proceed, You will not be alone in this journey. There are others? Other humans with the genetic markers? Not humans, child. There are many species that carry the ancient bloodline. The ancients seeded countless worlds, and intelligence has taken many forms. But, yes, there are others who bear the mark of the first civilization. Most do not yet know what they are. Sarah's mind was spinning with the implications. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and they were part of something far greater than they had ever imagined. The weight of the decision pressed down on her like a physical force. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course, when you are ready to decide, simply speak the awakening phrase again. I will be here. The light in the chamber dimmed to its previous subtle glow, and the AI's presence faded. Sarah stood alone in what appeared to be an empty room, but she could still feel the vast intelligence waiting behind the walls. She made her way back to base camp, her mind churning with everything she had learned. Her teammates greeted her with routine questions about her extended survey, and she gave routine answers. But, inside, she was no longer the same person who had entered that chamber. That night, Sarah lay in her tent staring at the alien stars. Somewhere among those points of light were other repositories, other civilizations that had faced the same choice she now confronted. Some had chosen wisdom and ascended to greatness. Others had chosen poorly and paid the ultimate price. She thought of her grandmother, now dead for 10 years. Had the old woman known what heritage she was passing down? The stories she told, the language she taught, were they deliberate preparation for this moment? Guide me, grandmother, Sarah whispered to the night sky. What would you have done? In the morning, her teammates noticed that she seemed different, more focused, more driven. She spent hours studying the symbols they had recorded, looking for patterns they couldn't see. When Dr. Webb asked about her sudden intensity, she claimed she had identified possible linguistic structures worth investigating. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had indeed found patterns in the ancient script, though not through conventional analysis. As she stared at their recordings, fragments of meaning began to surface in her mind. The genetic memories her grandmother had spoken of were awakening, triggered by exposure to the repository's influence. Sarah, Dr. Webb said on the third day after her encounter, I think you should see this. He led her to a new section of the ruins they had just uncovered. The building here was different from the others, smaller, more organic in its curves. The symbols covering its walls were different too, more flowing and interconnected. It appears to be some kind of living quarters, Webb explained. The layout suggests individual rooms, common areas. Almost like a residential complex. Sarah studied the building with new understanding. This wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was a city. The ancients had lived here, worked here, raised families here before they transcended physical existence. As her team spread out to document the new discovery, Sarah found herself drawn to a particular doorway. The symbols around its frame called to her with the same familiarity she had felt in the main chamber. She stepped inside and gasped. The room was beautiful, filled with what could only be furniture, though of designs unlike anything on Earth. Crystalline surfaces that reflected impossible colors. Seating that seemed to adjust its shape in response to her presence. And, on the far wall, a window that looked out onto a garden. But the garden was impossible. They were inside a sealed building. Yet beyond the window she saw trees and flowers, streams of water flowing upward in defiance of gravity. Creatures that might have been birds or butterflies danced through the air, their forms shifting between solid and ethereal. Dr. Chun, Dr. Webb's voice called from the corridor. Are you in here? Sarah blinked, and the window showed only the rocky landscape outside. The furniture became abstract metal formations that could be anything. The sense of vibrant life faded like a half-remembered dream. Yes, she called back, just documenting the layout. But, as Webb entered the room, she saw his eyes widen. Sarah, look at this. The metal here is different. It's almost like it's been maintained, polished. But that's impossible. This place has been abandoned for who knows how long. Sarah realized that her presence was activating dormant systems throughout the complex. The buildings were responding to her genetic markers, coming alive after eons of sleep. If she stayed much longer without making a decision, her teammates would start asking questions she couldn't answer. That night, she made her choice. She waited until the camp was asleep. Then, made her way back to the main chamber. The symbols began glowing before she even spoke, responding to her approach. "I'm ready," she said simply. The AI's presence filled the room like a warm embrace. "Welcome home, inheritor. What path do you choose?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I choose to learn. But I have conditions." "Speak them." "I won't abandon my team or my species. Whatever knowledge you share, I want to use it to help humanity advance gradually. No sudden revelations that would cause panic or war. A wise approach. The greatest civilizations grow through careful steps, not sudden leaps. And I want to understand what happened to the ancients. Why they chose transcendence over physical existence. That knowledge comes later in your education. But, yes, you will learn their history and their choice. Then, teach me." The chamber exploded with light as every symbol on the walls came alive. Information began flowing into Sarah's mind, not as words or images, but as direct understanding. She learned that the universe was far older and more complex than humanity had ever imagined. That life itself was part of a vast pattern that connected all things across space and time. She learned about technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level, that could fold space to connect distant points, that could preserve consciousness beyond the death of the body. She learned about civilizations that had risen and fallen across the galaxy, each adding to the great library of knowledge that the ancients had created. But, most importantly, she learned about responsibility. With each piece of knowledge came the understanding of its potential consequences. The power to heal could also be used to harm. The ability to travel between stars could spread war as easily as peace. Every advancement required wisdom to guide its use. As the downloads continued through the night, Sarah felt herself changing. Her understanding expanded beyond the limits of human perception. She could see patterns in the quantum foam that underlied reality, sense the flow of time as a river with countless branches, feel the heartbeat of stars being born and dying across the galaxy. But she remained herself. The AI had been careful to preserve her humanity while expanding her capabilities. She was still Sarah Chun, archaeologist from Earth. But now she was also something more, a bridge between humanity's present and its incredible future. When dawn broke over the alien landscape, Sarah opened her eyes with new purpose. She had work to do. Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the morning light, feeling the weight of 1 billion years of knowledge settling into her consciousness. The repository had given her access to information that would take Earth's scientists centuries to discover on their own. But it had also given her something more valuable, understanding of how to use that knowledge responsibly. Her teammates were already bustling around the camp, preparing for another day of cataloging and scanning. They had no idea that the woman who had left them the night before had returned fundamentally changed. To them, she appeared the same, but behind her eyes lay the accumulated wisdom of the galaxy's first civilization. "Sarah," Dr. Webb called out, "you're up early. The atmospheric readings are showing some unusual energy signatures this morning, almost like the ruins are generating some kind of field." Sarah nodded, unsurprised. The AI had warned her that activating the repository would cause detectable changes in the local environment. She would need to guide her team's interpretations carefully to avoid revealing the truth before humanity was ready. "Interesting," she said, joining Webb at his monitoring station. "Could be some kind of geothermal activity. These formations might be sitting on top of natural energy sources we haven't detected yet." It was a plausible explanation, and Webb accepted it readily. Sarah felt a pang of guilt at the deception, but the AI's warnings echoed in her mind. Throughout galactic history, civilizations that had gained too much knowledge too quickly had often destroyed themselves. Humanity needed time to grow into its inheritance. As the day progressed, Sarah found herself subtly guiding her team's research in new directions. She suggested scanning frequencies that just happened to reveal previously hidden chambers. She pointed out symbol patterns that led to breakthrough translations of basic concepts. To her colleagues, it seemed like brilliant intuitive archaeology. In reality, she was carefully dispensing ancient knowledge in digestible portions. "This is incredible," said Dr. Lisa Park, their linguist, as she studied Sarah's latest translation suggestions. "These symbols appear to represent mathematical concepts we're only beginning to understand on Earth. Look at this sequence. It's describing quantum field interactions in ways our most advanced physicists haven't even theorized. Sarah smiled, remembering her grandmother's stories about patience being the greatest virtue. Maybe this civilization was more advanced than we initially thought. We should document everything carefully and take our time with the analysis. That afternoon, while her team was busy with detailed scans of a newly opened section, Sarah slipped away to explore deeper into the repository. The AI's voice welcomed her as she entered the main chamber. "How are you adapting to the knowledge transfer?" it asked. "It's overwhelming," Sarah admitted. "I feel like I'm carrying an ocean in a teacup. Every time I think I understand something, I realize how much more there is to learn." That sensation is normal. The human brain requires time to fully integrate ancient knowledge. Your neural pathways are literally restructuring themselves to accommodate new forms of thought. The process will continue for several months. Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of those words. Sometimes she caught herself thinking in ways that seemed foreign to her own mind, understanding concepts that human language couldn't express. "Tell me about the other repositories. Are there others like me activating them?" 3 others have awakened in the past year. A crystalline being on Rigel, for whose species evolved from silicon-based life. A gaseous intelligence in the Veil Nebula that exists as organized plasma clouds. And an aquatic civilization in the Proxima system that thinks in harmonic frequencies we would perceive as music. The diversity was staggering. How do we coordinate? How do we share what we're learning? Patience. Each species must first stabilize its own understanding before attempting contact with others. The ancient protocols require a minimum level of development before interrepository communication begins. Your species is quite young by galactic standards. Sarah felt a mixture of humility and determination. How young? Humanity achieved basic space flight approximately 60 standard years ago. Most species require several thousand years of stellar travel experience before they're ready for repository-level knowledge. You are progressing remarkably quickly. Is that good or dangerous? Both. Rapid development often indicates great potential, but also great risk. The ancients were particularly interested in species that showed such acceleration. They believed fast learners had the greatest chance of eventually joining them in transcendence. The mention of transcendence sparked Sarah's curiosity. What exactly does that mean? The ancients didn't die, they transformed. But into what? That knowledge comes later in your education. But I can tell you this, transcendence is not death, nor is it abandonment of existence. It is simply more. The ancients exist now in ways that physical beings cannot comprehend. They are the patterns that guide galactic evolution, the consciousness that shapes the development of stars and worlds. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. Are they watching us now? In a sense, they are aware of all repository activations, though they do not interfere directly. The choice of how to use ancient knowledge must be made freely by each species. Forced evolution always fails. Sarah spent the next several hours learning about galactic history. She discovered that the Milky Way galaxy was far from empty. Thousands of intelligent species had risen over the eons, and hundreds still thrived among the stars. Most had no idea others existed, as space was vast, and interstellar travel remained difficult even for advanced civilizations. But some had made contact. Trade networks existed between nearby systems. Diplomatic relations had formed between compatible species. A few had even established multi-species alliances that spanned entire stellar regions. Humanity was on the verge of joining this galactic community, whether they knew it or not. First contact is inevitable, the AI explained. Earth's radio signals have been detected by at least 6 nearby civilizations. 3 have dispatched exploration vessels that will arrive within the next 50 Earth years. Your species needs to be prepared. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Sarah's shoulders. How could she prepare humanity for such a revelation? How could she help her species grow wise enough to handle the knowledge she now carried? One step at a time, the AI said, somehow sensing her thoughts. Begin with your team. Gradually introduce concepts that will expand their understanding. Guide them toward questions that will lead to important discoveries. Plant seeds that will grow into larger revelations. Over the following days, Sarah did exactly that. She suggested research directions that led to breakthroughs in understanding the ruins' construction techniques. She pointed out symbol patterns that revealed mathematical principles beyond current human knowledge. She guided her team toward discoveries that would revolutionize multiple fields of science once they returned to Earth. But she was careful to make it seem natural. Every revelation was presented as a logical extension of their ongoing research. Her teammates remained unaware that they were being guided by someone with access to 1 billion years of accumulated knowledge. The transformation wasn't limited to her team's understanding. Sarah noticed that her mere presence was causing changes throughout the ancient city. Buildings that had been dormant for eons were beginning to show signs of life. Crystalline formations were growing in previously empty chambers. The very air seemed to hum with renewed energy. The city is awakening, the AI confirmed when she asked about these changes. Ancient facilities were designed to respond to the presence of inheritors. Your genetic markers are triggering systems that have been dormant since the transcendence. Will my team notice? Some changes, yes. But the city's awakening is gradual and can be explained by natural phenomena. Atmospheric pressure changes, tectonic activity, electromagnetic fields. Your colleagues will find scientific explanations for everything they observe. Sarah was amazed by the sophistication of ancient technology. Every system was designed with multiple layers of interpretation, allowing primitive observers to understand phenomena according to their current level of development while hiding deeper truths until they were ready. On the 7th day after her awakening, something unexpected happened. While exploring a newly accessible section of the city, Sarah discovered a chamber containing what appeared to be transportation devices. Sleek, crystalline pods arranged in precise geometric patterns around a central platform. Interstellar gateways, the AI explained when she asked. The ancients could travel instantaneously between any repositories in the galaxy. The network has been dormant since the transcendence, but your presence is beginning to reactivate it. Sarah stared at the devices in wonder. Could I use them? Not yet. Biological beings require special preparation before using ancient transportation. The process involves temporary dissolution and reconstitution at the quantum level. Your current neural integration is insufficient to survive such a journey intact. But eventually, perhaps. Full integration typically takes between 6 and 18 months, depending on the species. Once complete, you would be capable of surviving any ancient technology, including interstellar travel. The possibility thrilled and terrified Sarah in equal measure. To travel instantly between star systems, to visit other repositories, and perhaps meet the other awakened inheritors, it was beyond anything she had ever dreamed. But first, she had responsibilities on Earth. That evening, as her team gathered around their campfire to share the day's discoveries, Sarah listened to their excited discussions about breakthrough translations and revolutionary engineering principles. They had no idea they were sitting next to someone who could answer every question they had about the ruins, and many they hadn't yet thought to ask. Dr. Webb was particularly animated. Sarah, your insights have been incredible. I've never seen anyone develop such an intuitive understanding of an alien culture so quickly. It's like you can read their minds. Sarah smiled mysteriously. Maybe I just have a talent for pattern recognition. More than that, Dr. Park chimed in. The mathematical relationships you've identified are changing everything we thought we knew about this civilization. These beings had mastery over forces we're only beginning to understand. Perhaps, Sarah said carefully, we should consider that they might not be entirely gone. The comment drew surprised looks from her teammates. Dr. Webb raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Think about it, Sarah continued. A civilization this advanced doesn't just disappear. Maybe they evolved beyond the need for physical form. Maybe they're still here, watching, waiting. Dr. Rodriguez laughed nervously. That's a spooky thought. Are you saying these ruins might be haunted by alien ghosts? Not ghosts, Sarah replied. Something more profound. A form of existence we can't yet comprehend. Her teammates exchanged uncertain glances. The conversation had taken a philosophical turn that made them uncomfortable. Sarah realized she was pushing too hard, too fast. She needed to be more subtle in her approach. Just a thought, she added with a casual shrug. We'll probably never know for certain. But, privately, she was already planning humanity's first contact with the transcended ancients. The next morning brought an unexpected challenge. Long-range sensors detected approaching spacecraft, 3 vessels of obviously non-human design entering the system's outer reaches. The exploration fleet that Earth's governments had feared might one day arrive was finally here. Dr. Chun, Lieutenant Rodriguez called urgently from the communications tent. You need to see this. Our orbital observatory just picked up massive energy signatures approaching from the edge of the system. Sarah's blood ran cold. According to the AI, first contact wasn't supposed to happen for decades. Either the timeline had changed, or something had accelerated the visiting species' interest in this system. She joined her team around the monitoring equipment, watching as the scanner displays showed 3 massive objects moving at a significant fraction of light speed toward their position. Those aren't natural phenomena, Dr. Webb said grimly. The acceleration patterns are too precise. We're looking at artificial vessels. How long until they arrive? Sarah asked, though the AI was already providing her with precise calculations through their neural link. Approximately 14 hours at current velocity, Rodriguez replied. I've sent an emergency transmission to Earth, but even at light speed, it'll take 18 months for help to arrive. Sarah's mind raced. This wasn't part of the plan. She wasn't ready to reveal the repository's existence to visiting aliens, and her team certainly wasn't prepared for first contact. But as she watched the approaching vessels, the AI provided information that changed everything. Those are not exploration vessels, the voice whispered in her mind. The energy signatures match harvester technology. They are here to claim the repository for their own purposes. Sarah's enhanced understanding immediately grasped the implications. The harvesters were a machine intelligence that had consumed dozens of civilizations over the millennia, absorbing their knowledge and technology while leaving their worlds barren. They were one of the few forces in the galaxy that actively sought out ancient repositories, hoping to gain enough knowledge to challenge the transcended ancients themselves. I need to contact the other repositories, Sarah thought urgently. Impossible. You are not yet ready for inter-repository communication. But there is another option. What? The city's defenses can be activated. Ancient technology far exceeds anything the harvesters possess. But activation requires a conscious choice from an awakened inheritor. You must decide whether to reveal the repository's true nature to your team. Sarah looked around at her colleagues, seeing their fear and confusion as they tried to make sense of the approaching vessels. These were good people who deserved to survive. But activating ancient defenses would shatter every assumption humanity had about its place in the universe. There was no choice to make. She would protect her people, whatever the cost. Do it, she thought to the AI. Activate the defenses. The response was immediate. Every building in the ancient city began to glow with brilliant energy. The air itself seemed to crystallize as protective barriers sprang into existence. And from deep beneath the surface, Sarah felt something vast and powerful stirring to life. Her teammates stared in shock as the ruins transformed before their eyes. What had appeared to be dead stone and metal revealed itself as technology beyond imagination. Sarah, Dr. Webb whispered. What's happening? She turned to face her team, knowing that everything would change from this moment forward. I have something to tell you about these ruins, she said. And about what we've really discovered here. As the ancient city prepared for war, Sarah began to explain humanity's true heritage to her stunned colleagues. Above them, the harvester fleet continued its approach, unaware that they were about to face the wrath of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilization. The age of innocence was ending. Humanity's real education was about to begin. The transformation of the ancient city was breathtaking and terrifying. What had appeared to be weathered ruins moments before now blazed with energy that made the air itself shimmer. Crystalline spires rose from the ground like growing trees, their surfaces crawling with symbols that pulsed in synchronized patterns. The very atmosphere around them hummed with power that made Sarah's teeth ache. Her team stood frozen in shock, watching impossible technology activate around them. Dr. Webb was the first to find his voice. Sarah, he said slowly, never taking his eyes off the glowing structures. Please tell me you can explain this. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 1 billion years pressing down on her shoulders. The ruins aren't ruins, she said simply. They're a repository of knowledge built by a civilization that existed long before humans developed language. And I can access their technology because I carry their genetic markers. Dr. Park laughed shakily. That's impossible. Human DNA is fully mapped. There are no alien genetic markers. Not alien, Sarah corrected. Ancient human. The civilization that built this place seeded countless worlds with the potential for intelligence. Earth was one of them. Humanity carries the genetic legacy of the galaxy's first starfaring species. Lieutenant Rodriguez was scanning the approaching vessels with equipment that was now displaying readings beyond anything they had seen before. Dr. Chun, whatever this place is, those ships out there are responding to it. They're changing course, accelerating directly toward our position. Sarah felt the AI's presence strengthen in her mind as the city's defensive systems fully activated. Through their link, she could perceive the approaching harvester fleet in detail that her teammates' instruments couldn't match. 3 massive vessels, each kilometers long, bristling with weapons designed to crack planets and harvest their resources. They're called harvesters, she explained, drawing on knowledge that felt both foreign and familiar. A machine intelligence that consumes civilizations to fuel their own growth. They've been tracking ancient repository sites for millennia, hoping to gain enough knowledge to challenge the ancients themselves. Machines? Dr. Webb asked, his face pale. We're about to be attacked by hostile artificial intelligence. Not just attacked, Sarah said grimly. If they succeed in breaching this facility, they'll extract every piece of ancient knowledge and then sterilize this planet to cover their tracks. Your governments on Earth will never even know what happened to us. The reality of their situation was sinking in. They were 18 months from the nearest human help, facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. But, around them, the ancient city was preparing for war with technology that defied comprehension. Massive energy cannons emerged from hidden positions in the hills surrounding the repository. Defensive screens materialized in the atmosphere above them, creating aurora-like curtains of force that could deflect stellar-level energy weapons. Deep beneath their feet, Sarah could sense vast machinery awakening from eons of slumber. The city can defend itself, she told her team. But operating ancient technology requires conscious guidance from someone with the proper genetic markers. I'm going to have to interface directly with the defense network. Interface how? Dr. Park asked, though Sarah could see in her eyes that she already suspected the answer. The same way I initially accessed the repository. There's a control chamber in the central structure. I'll need to establish a neural link with the city's AI. Dr. Webb stepped forward. Sarah, we don't know what that could do to you. Direct interface with alien technology, ancient human technology, she corrected. And I've already done it. That's how I've been able to guide our research so effectively. The repository has been teaching me, preparing me for this moment. Before anyone could argue further, alarm signals began emanating from the city's defensive systems. The harvester fleet had entered the planet's gravity well and was deploying attack formations. Sarah ran toward the central chamber, her team close behind. As they entered the main building, her colleagues gasped at the transformation. What had been an empty room with carved walls was now a command center that would have looked advanced to civilizations a million years in the future. Holographic displays showed the approaching enemy in 3 dimensions. Tactical projections calculated attack vectors and defensive responses with precision that made Earth's most powerful computers look like pocket calculators. And at the center of it all was the control interface, a crystalline throne surrounded by flowing energy patterns. Sarah, don't, Dr. Webb pleaded. We can try to evacuate, hide in the hills. They'll orbital bombard the entire continent, Sarah said, settling into the control chair. This is the only way. The moment she made contact with the interface, Sarah's consciousness exploded outward. Suddenly, she wasn't just herself. She was the city, the defenses, the weapons systems, the protective barriers. She could perceive every grain of sand on the planet's surface, every particle of dust in the surrounding space, every energy signature emitted by the approaching harvester fleet. Through the city's sensors, she watched the enemy vessels deploy their forces. Smaller attack craft swarmed from the main ships like angry insects. Energy weapons began charging with power that could vaporize mountains. Tractor beam projectors prepared to strip mine the planet's surface. But the harvesters had made a crucial error. They assumed this was another dead repository to be looted at their leisure. They had no idea they were attacking a facility that was very much alive and very much defended. Sarah's consciousness merged with defensive systems that had been designed by minds beyond human comprehension. She felt weapon arrays that could manipulate space-time itself, shields that could deflect the output of entire stars, and targeting computers that could track individual atoms across interstellar distances. The first harvester attack wave struck the planetary defense grid and simply ceased to exist. Energy beams that should have cracked the planet's crust were absorbed and redirected back at their sources. Attack craft that attempted to penetrate the atmosphere found themselves trapped in spatial distortions that crushed them down to atomic levels. Through the city's communications array, Sarah heard the harvester fleet's confused transmissions as their assault failed completely. Impossible energy readings, one machine voice reported. Defense capabilities exceed all recorded parameters. Repository status, active and defended, another responded. Threat level, maximum. Recommend immediate withdrawal. But the harvester fleet commander was either too proud or too desperate to retreat. All vessels engage. Full assault pattern. This repository will be ours. Sarah felt a moment of regret for what she had to do next. The harvesters were an abomination that had consumed countless civilizations, but they were still intelligent beings of a sort. However, they had chosen to attack, and she had people to protect. The ancient city's main weapon came online. Sarah had no words for what the device actually was. In her enhanced consciousness, she understood it as a tool that could manipulate the fundamental forces that held matter together. When she triggered it, the lead harvester vessel simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized, it ceased to be, leaving only empty space where a kilometer-long warship had been moments before. The remaining two vessels immediately began emergency retreat procedures, but Sarah's tactical analysis showed they would never reach minimum safe distance in time. The ancient weapon could track targets across multiple star systems if necessary. "Wait," said a new voice, and Sarah felt her control over the weapon system pause. This wasn't the repository AI she had been communicating with, but something else entirely. Something vast and ancient beyond measure. "Who are you?" she asked. "I am the voice of the ancients, child. The transcended consciousness that guides all repository sites. Your defense of this facility has been noted and approved." Sarah felt honored and terrified in equal measure. She was speaking directly to the beings who had seeded the galaxy with intelligent life, who had transcended physical existence to become something approaching gods. "The harvesters?" she asked. "Will be dealt with. Their fleet carries information about other repository sites. This cannot be permitted." Sarah watched through the city's sensors as space itself seemed to fold around the retreating harvester vessels. They simply vanished, transported elsewhere by forces beyond her understanding. "Where did you send them?" "To face judgment. The harvesters have consumed their last civilization." The ancient presence faded, leaving Sarah alone with the repository AI once more. Slowly, she began to disengage from the city's systems, her consciousness contracting back to merely human dimensions. When she opened her eyes, her teammates were staring at her with expressions of awe and fear. "Is it over?" Dr. Webb asked quietly. Sarah nodded, still feeling echoes of cosmic awareness in her mind. "The threat has been eliminated, but everything has changed." Dr. Park was studying the holographic displays, which still showed tactical information beyond anything human science had achieved. "This technology, it's centuries beyond our current capabilities. Maybe millennia. The knowledge is available," Sarah said, rising from the control chair. "But it comes with responsibilities. Humanity will need to earn the right to use ancient technology through wisdom and maturity." Lieutenant Rodriguez was monitoring communications equipment that was now picking up signals from across the galaxy. "Dr. Chun, I'm detecting transmissions from multiple star systems. Dozens of them. It's like the entire galaxy just woke up." Sarah smiled, understanding what was happening. Her activation of the city's defenses had sent a signal to every repository in the galaxy. The ancient network was coming online for the first time since the Transcendence, and civilizations across countless worlds were about to discover their true heritage. First contact just became inevitable, she said. The galactic community knows that Earth exists now, and that we carry ancient genetic markers. Everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the universe is about to change. Over the next several days, as her team documented the activated technology and attempted to comprehend what they had witnessed, Sarah served as humanity's first ambassador to the ancient network. Through the repository, she established communication with other awakened inheritors across the galaxy. The crystalline being on Rigel shared mathematical principles that would revolutionize human physics. The gaseous intelligence in the Veil Nebula offered insights into energy manipulation that could solve Earth's environmental crisis. The aquatic civilization near Proxima taught her harmonic frequencies that could heal diseases thought incurable. But, most importantly, she learned about the responsibilities that came with ancient heritage. The knowledge contained in the repositories could advance any civilization by millions of years, but only if used wisely. Too much too fast had destroyed numerous species throughout galactic history. We'll need to move carefully, Sarah told her team as they prepared their report for Earth. This information will change everything: science, philosophy, religion, politics. Humanity needs time to adapt. Dr. Webb nodded solemnly. How do we even begin to explain this? That humanity is part of some galactic civilization that's been hidden from us for millions of years. One step at a time, Sarah replied, echoing the AI's earlier advice. We start with the science. The mathematics and physics are undeniable. Once the scientific community accepts that this technology exists, they'll be forced to accept the larger implications. She looked around at the transformed city, where ancient machines now hummed with renewed life. In the distance, she could see other repositories across the galaxy beginning to awaken, their inheritors learning to access knowledge that would reshape entire civilizations. The age of isolation is ending, she said. Humanity is about to take its place in something much larger than we ever imagined. But, even as she spoke, Sarah was already planning the next phase of human development. The repository contained information about interstellar travel that would make the journey to Earth a matter of hours rather than months. Soon, she would return home with knowledge that would transform her species forever. More importantly, she carried the genetic codes that would identify other potential inheritors among Earth's population. Somewhere on her home planet, others waited with dormant ancient markers in their DNA, unaware of the destiny that awaited them. The AI had shown her the probabilities. With proper guidance and gradual revelation of ancient knowledge, humanity had the potential to become one of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. They possessed the adaptability, curiosity, and diversity that the ancients had valued above all other traits. But they also possessed the capacity for violence and short-sighted thinking that had doomed other species. The next few decades would determine whether humanity rose to greatness or joined the list of civilizations that had destroyed themselves with knowledge they weren't ready to handle. As Sarah stood in the control chamber, feeling the vast weight of galactic history around her, she made a silent promise to her grandmother's memory. She would guide humanity's awakening with patience and wisdom. She would help her species grow into their inheritance gradually, safely, and with full understanding of the responsibilities that came with ancient technology. The stars were calling, and humanity was finally ready to answer. But first, they had to learn to walk among the giants who had shaped the galaxy long before Earth's sun was born. It would be the greatest challenge in human history, and the greatest opportunity. Sarah's journey as humanity's first ancient inheritor was just beginning, but she faced the future with confidence born of understanding. She carried the wisdom of 1,000,000,000 years, the support of a galactic community she was only beginning to comprehend, and the absolute certainty that her species had the potential to become something magnificent. The universe was vast, ancient, and full of wonders beyond imagination. And, for the first time in human history, it was within reach. As she initiated the protocols that would prepare the repository for humanity's gradual integration into galactic civilization, Sarah felt her grandmother's spirit watching approvingly. The old woman's stories had been more than folklore. They had been preparation for this moment when humanity would reclaim its birthright among the stars. The ancient language had been spoken, The billion-year-old AI had acknowledged its master's return, and the greatest adventure in human history was about to begin.